Hello and welcome to In the Drink. This week we are going to be looking at Iron Man, one of my favourite films as a young boy and which is still one of my favourite franchises to this day. Iron Man was this seminal film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe which kicked off this enormous genre of high concept science fiction, fantasy superhero movies which, you know, was pretty tongue-in-cheek but is able to take itself seriously at all the appropriate moments.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
Over 10 years ago and is still, you know, one of the most revered genres to this very day. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, in my opinion, is one of the most significant movements in cinematic history. There is no such franchise which has achieved the most enormous scale that Marvel has. 20-something movies from Iron Man to Avengers Endgame is just absolutely unprecedented for one continuous, unbreaking storyline.
Right. Well done.
Apart from maybe perhaps Star Wars, but that was only 6 movies from beginning to end. So, Iron Man kicked off the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's released in 2008, starring Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. After a period of downtime, he emerges into this new breakout role. And he really burst onto the scene in this one. I remember watching this film in the cinemas as a 9-year-old and just thinking, my God, like, that guy is Tony Stark. Like, you know, even by that point you can kind of realize actors and actresses playing roles. No, Robert Downey Jr. was Tony Stark at this point, and he still is. I mean, I know he's kind of given up since Avengers Endgame, but it is absolutely undeniable the impact he has on that role. And during one of the pivotal scenes in the movie, he attends a business party where he encounters his assistant, secretary, and all-around life assistant, Pepper Potts.
I actually don't think that you could tie your shoes without me.
I'd make it a week.
Really?
He takes her out for a dance and then later out to the balcony in which he asks for a vodka martini, extra dry, and lots of olives, like at least 3 olives.
I would like a drink, please. A vodka martini, please. Very dry with olives, a lot of olives, like at least 3 olives.
The martini is a classic cocktail, a classic American invention, invented sometime in the 19th century. There's a bit of a debate as to where it comes from, which probably isn't necessary at the moment, otherwise we'd be here for like at least an hour. So why not just get right into Pepper Potts' preferred martini? So this is going to be a stirred drink, in which case we will need a stirring spoon and a stirring vessel. Now in the scene, Pepper Potts asks for the martini pretty dry. If we make it too dry, we're just going to be drinking a glass of vodka, which is never going to be nice under any circumstances. So I'm just going to make a fairly dry martini with about half an ounce of dry vermouth. And I'm going to be using Dolin dry vermouth. You can never go wrong with this stuff in any variation of a martini. This is a fairly reliable go-to dry vermouth when it comes to martinis. And that leaves us with about 2.5 ounces of vodka. I'm going to use Smirnoff vodka. I'm fairly certain this is Smirnoff vodka in here. I can't promise that it is just that. Vodka is vodka. It's a neutral grain spirit. There's no variation in distilling from different vodka brands to vodka brands. I fill this bottle up from time to time because it's the nicest small vodka bottle that I've ever gotten. And frankly, I don't use it that much normally. So 2.5 ounces of vodka. Now there's no indication that this vodka martini would have orange bitters in it. In a traditional martini recipe, you could expect orange bitters to be used. Just a couple dashes just to kind of bring out the citrus notes in the gin, which is more standard for a martini. Obviously we're not using gin, so the orange bitters may not make sense. But because it is a very dry vodka martini, I am going to put 2 dashes of orange bitters in here just to bring some semblance of flavour to this drink. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to be able to stomach it. Now we're going to add ice to this and stir. And we're going to serve this up in a martini glass. Normally you should keep the martini glasses in the freezer. before serving them. Just for presentational purposes, I'm not going to freeze mine, just so you can see exactly what goes into the glass. And then Pepper wants like at least 3 olives in her vodka martini, so she will get 3 olives. And I think these olives are actually, with just a little bit of olive brine they're going to bring to it, is going to give that little bit of acidity, which should hopefully elevate this otherwise quite bland cocktail to a new level. I'm hoping this will kind of make it a little bit more complex. And there you have it, the vodka martini as seen in Iron Man. I can't wait to try this thing. I've never had a vodka martini before. I've only ever had my martinis made with gin. So, bottoms up. And especially, I've never had mine made without at least just an expression of lemon peel over them either. So, cheers. You know, that's not so bad. I was actually expecting to not really like this very much. It's certainly a lot more subtle than a gin martini, that's for sure. There's not a lot of complexity going on there. But you definitely get that, because I had half amounts of vermouth in there, I didn't quite make it extra dry. You're still getting that really subtle vermouth flavors through there. And those orange bitters are bringing just a tiny touch of citrus to it, which is just evolving the vermouth flavors ever so slightly. That's really quite nice. I mean, it's no gin martini. Let's get that straight. Gin would absolutely go better here, without a shadow of a doubt. There'd be more flavor, more complexity, but it absolutely would not be overpowering. Now the vodka, it's not unpleasant, that's for sure. I was genuinely expecting to kind of hate this cocktail. I absolutely do not. And I'll be honest, the brine from the olives, a little bit of that seeps into it, just a tiny touch of it, which gives it a little bit of acidity and a little bit of saltiness, which complements the herbaceousness of the vermouth and the citrus of the orange bitters really nicely. That is honestly quite pleasant. No, I'm honestly quite enjoying that. I was expecting to kind of stand here and give you an enormous presentation as to why I really dislike a vodka martini, but I found myself defeated, quite frankly, once again. The saltiness of those is really nice. Yeah. No, I find myself quite defeated, actually. The saltiness of those olives pair absolutely perfectly to that Dolin vermouth. Is it Dolin vermouth? Dolin? Chambéry? How would you pronounce that? Dolin? Okay. Dolin. Neither of us are French, so we both say Dolin. We both say Dolin, so. And to just really enjoy the first Iron Man film, because the suit especially was not fully CG. Oftentimes it was a real practical suit. After about the first Iron Man film, they figured out a way to computer generate the suit and just make it easier for Robert Downey Jr. to move around and act and deliver all of his cues on time. I mean, that's all well and good, but just the way that practical suit looks, it just looks amazing, and you just can't beat it. And although the computer-generated suit is fantastic, you just can't beat a practical model, a practical suit, a practical set, anytime, any day of any week. That's just a fact. And which is kind of why I love the original Iron Man, you know? It's the same reason why I love a lot of those older films where they don't have computer-generated effects at their disposal. You know, they're forced to use real physical scale models, sets, or costumes instead of going to computer-generated alternatives. Although practical models, costumes, sets can often look a little bit clunky, I genuinely believe that they're actually better off for the quality of the film overall. Because although computer-generated costumes, sets, props, whatever, what else have you, although they're often more fluid and more dynamic, you can kind of tell that they're not real, they're not tangible. You can't reach out and touch them because the brain recognizes that they're not real. Whereas a real suit, a real set, a real prop, like although it may look a little bit more clunky, it's a real thing. It's tangible, you can reach out and you can touch it and you know that it's actually there. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I love the original Iron Man so much, because those semblance of the actual real Iron Man suit is still there.